Scooby-Doo and Krypto 2 was slated to release in fall of 2023, but was pulled due to new leadership at Warner Bros. Discovery, who believed the tax break received for not releasing it would be more than the potential profits.
They just write it off.
This was unfortunately the fourth Scooby-Doo project that had been cancelled this way, which included Scoob, Holiday Haunt, Scooby-Doo and the Haunted High-Rise, and Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Pups. The film was actually 100% complete, as were most of these other projects, but it was thought that they would never see the light of day. Now, as long as there are no narcs around, we can review the leaked copy of Scooby-Doo and Krypto 2, released about 2 weeks ago. This was actually the second of these shelved projects to be released, after a Popeye animated feature appeared on the web. Overall, the film is very solid, with good character interactions, a number of fun DC Easter eggs, and solid animation, including a fairly impressive finale. The mystery itself is a bit weak, with extremely obvious red herrings and clues stretched thin, but the film was aiming for more action than a traditional Scooby-Doo episode, and it largely delivers. The basic premise is that the primary members of the Justice League, Superman, Batman, Flash, etc., have mysteriously disappeared, and their headquarters has become a tourist attraction. Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen go to investigate, and discover a flaming orange phantom. They call up the Scooby Gang, who arrive in Metropolis to find it in chaos, with villains like Giganta, Joker and Harley Quinn, Solomon Grundy, Brainiac, and General Zod running around causing destruction. After a brief chase scene with the gang flying across buildings, they arrive at the Daily Planet. There's a fun bit where Lois and Jimmy can't recognize Velma without her glasses, which pays off at the very end with Superman as Clark Kent losing his glasses and being terrified someone will realize his secret identity. The gang soon arrive outside the Hall of Justice and meet some average people, including a valet and a food cart vendor, who have reasons to hate the Justice League, but clearly didn't cause their disappearance. They soon run into Lex Luthor, who is one of the major characters in the film. He's made out to be a bit of a fool, constantly getting lost, and taunted about losing the presidency. There's a bit of a twist at the end that reveals him to be more competent than previously shown, but here he does feel a bit Flanderized from other portrayals. In their tour of the Hall of Justice, they encounter a room of memorabilia of supervillains. Without being a huge fan of DC Comics, some of the references escape me, but it's nice to see the attention to detail. Scooby also briefly acquires a Red Lantern ring, showing off his deadly sin of wrath, but Velma quickly removes it. The Phantom appears, and Shaggy briefly takes on the Green Arrow persona to defend Scooby, although his efforts are ultimately in vain. The group runs away, although there's no classic chase, and then Krypto is introduced. He's Superman's dog, and had his first appearance in 1955. Initially a one-off character, he proved so popular that he's been a recurring presence ever since. There is a bit of an oddity, though, as he's said to be as intelligent as a normal human, but he is unable to speak, unlike Scooby. I certainly expected them to have a conversation, but Krypto is only able to growl or bark. The entire facility goes into lockdown due to the Phantom, and the gang stumbles upon Lex Luthor, who is attempting to buy chips from a vending machine. A far cry from stealing 40 cakes, although eventually he just smashes it open with his disintegration watch. After a brief discussion, everyone goes their separate ways, and Shaggy and the two dogs head to what turns out to be a Danger Room-style simulator. They accidentally summon the villains they encountered before, though somehow Solomon Grundy just walked into the sealed facility. The pair also make an iconic enormous sandwich, which is unfortunately vaporized before they can eat it. In the meantime, Fred and Daphne find the locker rooms, and Fred discovers one of Batman's utility belts. This has a number of solid jokes, including a special celebration for the birthday of Second Robin. Fred's ineptitude is played up here, throwing out a number of useless objects and using it wrong, but it largely works and is consistent with his characterization in many Scooby-Doo films. The pair discover an invisible tank, which is part of a recurring joke about Wonder Woman's transparent vehicles, and there's a solid payoff during the third act. The whole training room sequence goes on a bit too long, with almost 5 minutes of avoiding, tricking, and playing with the villains with no real sense of danger or progression. There is finally a chase scene as Solomon Grundy is revealed to not be a hologram and follows the group around the entire building, allowing more references to the wider DC universe. It's exactly what the earlier sequence should have been, and set to decent music. It's revealed at the end that Grundy didn't actually want to hurt anyone, and he just wanted to pet the dogs. And there are hints of this throughout, although It becomes most apparent in the final confrontation with him. Grundy mysteriously disappears, and in an amusing scene, Fred tries to take credit for it, before being denied individually by everyone else there. Next, the Phantom shows up, but this time there's a whole group, clearly facsimiles of the Justice League, with Hawkman especially standing out. A brief time later, and they've solved the mystery, somehow. The gang sets up a trap, using the holographic room again, and it's revealed to be Lex Luthor's assistant, who stole the Phantom Zone projector that was mentioned earlier, and has done it all to become a new supervillain. She also offers free snacks to all, getting Shaggy and Scooby immediately on her side. Then there's the final twist, where it's revealed that Lex knew about the plan the entire time, and had built superpowered Kryptonian robots to destroy the whole facility, so he could take the land and sell it. Ultimately, Scooby-Doo always comes down to capitalism. The CG bulldozers that initially roll out are a bit spotty, with light that doesn't quite match up, but when they transform it looks much better. There is then a final big action scene, where the Phantom Zone gun bounces around between every character, villain, and robot. Basically everything mentioned earlier in the film comes back in a fairly satisfying way, and the animation is fairly above par, with interesting and dynamic moments that flow fairly well into one another. There's a lot of little set pieces here that are worth talking about. Velma has a Rock'em Sock'em robot battle with Lex, Daphne saves the day by actually being Batman, Fred comes in with the invisible tank, Shaggy and Scooby mount the food truck, and Krypto has several battles with the robot kryptonite-powered dog. It's a solid 6-minute scene that is likely the best in the film, being long enough to include good moments for every character, but not so much that it drags on. In the end, the villains are defeated, heroes return, and everyone is able to move on with their lives. Ultimately, it's not the most inventive or creative plot, and it's a scant 78 minutes, but it's generally solid. It makes good use of the IPs involved, which can be a challenge for any crossover, and the final act more than makes up for some of the duller middle sections. It's a solid B in the Scooby-Doo tier list. If you have the opportunity, this is a solid film to watch, especially as a fan of DC Comics, or superheroes in general, which makes it all the sadder this will never have a wide release. I'm sure the economists have done the math, and somehow it's better not to put this, and the other shell films like it, out into the world, but from a viewer's perspective it feels utterly baffling, and gets rid of any confidence in the company. According to a recent article, they've supposedly stopped canceling projects, but it's impossible to say if that's true, or what goes on behind closed doors. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, comment, and all that YouTube jazz. Thank you, and have a lovely day.